So the other day, I went up to my coworker that really likes K-pop. They asked me, who's my favorite or who's my favorite band member in BTS.
Mm-hmm.
But so I told them I don't know that much about BTS, but I do know a lot about Twice. And so for anyone who knows K-pop and will know why this person responded like this, but they're like, "Oh, who's your favorite Twice member?" And I was like, "It's Sana." And they just look at me and just yell out, "You whore!" And I'm just like, what just happened?
So you went about your business.
And then I went about my business. So if anyone could let me know why.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for tuning into Those Nerds Over There. This is a podcast dedicated to celebrating and discussing nerd culture. We're your hosts. I'm Allen.
And I'm Sal.
And today you're joining us during our post-Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this past weekend we got the opportunity to attend Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con, and first and foremost, just, thank you to Amazing Comic Conventions and PAL Public Relations for this experience. It's by your grace that we got to go to this amazing convention.
Yes, and after going to this convention and Level Up Expo, it's just, give us more. Like, no matter how draining or money consuming these conventions can be, like, they're just so fun and just the best experience.
Yeah, I think they've definitely earned that tag amazing comic conventions.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, if I wanted to summarize the weekend, I was thinking themes. And the themes of this past weekend, I felt, were like hard work, inspiration, and modesty were the ones I was thinking about.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, after every panel that I walked out of, I just felt more inspired to create things and just like realizing how lucky and being more thankful for the things we actually have like right now in 2019.
Yeah, it's pretty great. A big theme of the convention was influences on pop culture. And that was definitely like littered throughout the whole thing. Just all these people that, made what pop culture is today.
It was like witnessing, I felt like I wanted to say history lecture, but that makes it sound boring because it was like super entertaining to watch. And you sat there and you were mesmerized by learning about these legendary artists and writers and their experiences. Like, before comics were part of pop culture.
Yeah, and hearing all their stories, too, about how they got into comics and, just reflecting on how it compares to how people today get into comics, how different it is and how easily accessible and, like, in the mainstream it is today. It's just wild to think about.
Yeah, just how radically different our times are.
It's super cool. And, we always can learn a lot from these people that started essentially all of it.
But before we continue like going on about our weekend and all the stuff we got to learn and feel, we're going to pull a question from our nut jar. For first-time listeners, this is what we colloquially call the nut jar. It's just a jar we emptied of its salty, salty nuts and filled with listener-submitted questions. These are just fun discussion questions that we throw out there, and we're trying to, like, talk with you guys because they're fun questions. If, you want to shout out in the show, feel free to send us a question at our Twitter at ThoseNerdsCast or ThoseNerdsCast@gmail.com. But in honor of today's episode, I thought we would just pull from our list of questions we gathered during Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con. We got a lot of really good questions, actually.
Yeah, way more in-depth, I guess, unique than we usually get. Which is not to say we usually get bad questions, but the things that these people came up with. We're like, wow, I never would have thought of that.
So Sal has the list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this D8 into the jar and then toss it about and see what number comes out.
Perfect.
All right, let's go. Oh, that's loud.
And this way, the nut jar still commands what comes out.
All right, number 5.
Number 5. Well, this one comes from Koi, the dude from Collider, so I don't know his handle.
Okay, I have it. Okay, because I'm going to butcher it, because it's just his full name. Okay. But it's Koi Jandrau, CoyJandreau on Twitter. So we actually met him, or not met him, but we saw him during the first panel we went to. And both me and Sal were just like, oh my god, that was whoever the panel moderator is. He did an amazing job. And serendipitously, while we spent the other 2 days wondering, like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? The final panel we went to was a moderator there. And we got to talk to his coworker and find out, oh, hey, he's Koi. He's great. And then we got to talk to him after.
Yeah, he definitely set the bar on how good the panels would be at the convention. And I remember, after that first panel, we were like, who is this guy? We need to talk to him. And then we just turn around and he just disappeared and wasn't there.
Oh, that's another recurring theme throughout the week. People we want to talk to just vanishing into thin air.
Yeah, just you get a glimpse of somebody, and as soon as you took your eye off them, they would just vanish. But, as fate would have it, we got to speak to him in person, and he was like a super cool dude. So his question was, what is your reaction towards the things you loved as a kid being adapted into the modern age, essentially?
Right. So I guess a bit of context on this question. We were with our friend Suspiria. He did photos for us again. Thank you so much. But he had been talking to Koi about how he had grown up on Spider-Man only in the video games. And Koi was like, oh, well, what do you think about Spider-Man now in our modern age, given that you only grew up with the video games?
Yes. So you want to stick, to, did you grow up on Spider-Man?
I didn't, actually. Okay. I remember going into that first panel feeling a little, shy because I didn't get into Spider-Man until the Tobey Maguire movies, because that's, when I grew up.
Okay, well then, since this is a more open-ended question, what is something that you did grow up with that has gotten adapted?
So, this is kind of, I don't know if this completely fits the criteria, but it kind of made me think about, how Pokemon was recently adapted into that Detective Pikachu movie.
Okay, I think that counts.
Cool. We all grew up on Pokemon video games and a little bit of the anime for me, but mostly the games. And I think we've grown up in a time where video game movies kind of notoriously do bad.
Correct.
So then, I think it's reasonable that I was very skeptical when the Pokemon movie came out, because growing on the games and knowing that video game movies don't do well, I'm just like, oh, please don't ruin my favorite game series.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's how, growing up with, Pokemon video games kind of shaped how I thought about the movie. I had these preconceived notions it was going to be bad, but, okay. And we all ended up, really loving the movie.
Well, those of us who've seen it.
Okay, yes, that's right. Sal's movie buddy flaked on him to watch the movie, and now Sal's sad. But I saw Detective Pikachu. I freaking loved it. And it wasn't I thought the plot was silly, but I guess it was just you finally get to see the world you grew up with in a movie, and it felt magical, and I loved it. And I feel a little bad just you went in really kind of shitting on it when you really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But this also kind of made me think of anime fans would have interesting opinions on this, given how, light novel adaptations work.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Light novels usually get adapted pretty well, though.
Do they?
Yeah. Are you thinking something specifically that didn't get adapted well?
I guess Fate.
Fate?
Fate Stay Night.
Did that not get adapted well?
I mean, don't people die when they're killed?
I mean, but that's the old adaptation, not the new adaptation.
But that was just my example. I think
Right. No, I get that. But that was a visual novel, I'm pretty sure, not a light novel.
oh.
Which, yes, there's a difference.
Well, then I guess imagine I replace light novel with visual novel.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's visual novels are popular, right? That was where, like, Umineko came from.
Steins Gate was also a visual novel.
Ooh, and that's, like, crazy popular.
And really good, so that wasn't a problem being adapted.
Okay.
But yes, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So I'm interested, like, at least thoughts on that, because I don't really do visual novels.
Yeah, I mean all the ones I've seen have been pretty solid, except the original Fate's Day, which it was still entertaining enough, I think, but I would have called it a failure in the sense of an adaptation. But we ended up getting like the best adaptation a person could, or a visual novel could get. So Ufotable came in clutch with that. For me, answering this question, I didn't grow up on Spider-Man very much, but I did on Superman. And so I'll talk about Superman because it's usually something I like to avoid talking about when it comes to the adaptation. But, in spirit of this question, I loved Superman as a child. He is still my favorite superhero. We actually in some of the early days of Superman, harkening back to video games, he got like one of the worst video games ever made. But I never played it, so thank God for that. But he actually started off really strong. He got some good animated TV shows, and the first movies are like cult classics. It was only until recently that people started not liking Superman, and I think it's because the new movies tend to not capture the heart or like the essence of who Superman is. They just know all the technical stuff about what he's supposed to be. And so I'm one of those people that don't really like the new adaptations, but also I can enjoy them to an extent. And I actually am in love with Henry Cavill, so I guess that helps a little bit. But my problem is, if you're going to adapt something, adapt it. I've talked about this in the past. Don't just like copy paste, try something new, which they definitely did. It just didn't work out that well. And, that can suck a lot for some people, or, people can take it for what it is and, appreciate that their favorite childhood hero or their, this thing that they love can be shared to a wider audience who could actually look at it and maybe like it and then go read the original stuff that you loved, and then you can love it together. So I don't know if that answers the whole question, but
Here, can you actually read the question again?
Well, I said it a little bit differently than
That's
what
fine.
exactly was written. But it says, what's your reaction towards the things that you grew up with being adapted into the new age, essentially?
I think my overall reaction is mostly negative, though, which is really unfortunate, because despite, me going into Detective Pikachu, like I said, that was negative, but then it just made me think about Wonder Woman.
Stop thinking about Wonder Woman.
I can't. I grew up watching Justice League Unlimited with my sister.
Okay, well then you should have went with Wonder Woman then.
Wonder Woman was so great. And I don't know, I just got so upset with the latter half of the Wonder Woman movie.
Ah, man, I get it. I really do, but I love the heck out of that movie.
I know you do.
It's just, I want you to love it the way I love it, okay?
I just felt like they did Wonder Woman Diana so dirty.
I guess. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question for me, I have a positive outlook on that. I used to think that things being adapted were a bad thing because you're taking what I love and essentially ripping it apart and creating something for your, something different that isn't what it was supposed to be. And, sometimes that can suck, but it opens up so many more possibilities that I don't mind it.
And I'm sad to say that I think I'm on the opposite end of that.
Yeah, I'm sad to hear that.
Sus, I mean, we'd be glad to hear about, your take on Spider-Man now, versus, given what you grew up with. And I want to hear about, anime lovers with visual novels, how you guys feel about that now, given it seems like adaptations in anime are much better.
Yes. And to Koi, who asked this question, I'd love to know his response, because he actually talked about during the panel that we're living in a new golden age of Spider-Man. So he really likes the new Spider-Man stuff, which, I mean, who can blame him? The new Spider-Man stuff
it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
But I'm sure, he's such a diehard comic book fan, I'm sure there's other properties that he might not think the same. So I would love if he sees this, if you see this, or hear this.
Thank you, first of all.
I would love to know. Yes, thank you, first of all, but...
And then any other listeners out there, just because I honestly can't really think besides comic to movie adaptations, really. I'm kind of having a hard time breaking out of that framework. If you guys can think of anything from your lives that, pertain to this, I'd love to hear it. Kind of in line with that question, the first panel we attended was actually moderated by Koi.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, the official title was Architects of Pop Culture Presents Spider-Man and Friends. And on the panel, we had Jerry Conway, Fabrice Sapolsky, and Angel Medina. I'm so sorry for butchering all your names.
I think you got those right. For anyone who doesn't know, Jerry Conway is...
infamous
for the death of Gwen Stacy.
Yep.
He also created or helped create The Punisher, and he was just a big influence on Amazing Spider-Man overall. Angel Medina has worked on a lot of different Spider-Mans, including Marvel Knights, and he also had his own comic in the Image line of comics called Sam and Twitch. And then Fabrice, he created Spider-Man Noir.
Yes. So
that cool guy you seen in Into the Spider-Verse, that's his baby, essentially.
I remember someone had asked Fabrice, hey, did you ever imagine Nick Cage being the voice of Spider-Man Noir?
Yeah, and he was just straight up like, no.
So this was the first panel we went to, and initially when I went into it, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a history lecture, so take notes and then move on. But I mean, shame on me for being so dismissive right off the bat, because holy hell, that was just one mesmerizing panel.
Yeah, it had, Koi was definitely the person that, brought the energy, but, they all kind of worked off of each other, and just the energy was great. And they were all so excited to talk about this thing they loved. It was so different because, when we go to other panels and you talk about these things that people are in, we went to a Power Rangers panel and they didn't really know a lot of the Power Rangers mythos, but these guys knew Spider-Man the back of their hand. They would be yeah, Spider-Man number 121, and you remember this specific panel, and it was just mind-blowing, just the level of nerd that these guys were on, and it was just so fascinating to listen to.
Oh my god, yeah, for both Fabrice and Angel, they were Like when they were asked, "Oh, what was inspiration for your style?" and then we're just pulling out this panel from this page of this issue. I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah, and they're all like amazing in their own right, but they thought that each other were amazing, you know? They're like, oh man, I loved your work on this. And no, I loved your work on this. And I thought that was super cool.
It's very sweet and cool to see that.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just, they all just love Spider-Man, and it was great.
One of the standout moments for me during that panel was when they were asked, like, oh, how did you get into comics? And I really remember Angel and Fabrice's answer, just because it was kind of strange for me to hear that for Angel Medina, his mother had bought his brother comics and he would just read them. I air quotes on read, because he couldn't read at the time, when what initially got him into comics was just simply looking at the pictures. And I mean, connecting from A to B here, because now he is this amazing artist has done so much. Like that, it was wild for me to hear that, but also just like, dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then for Fabrice, he grew up in France, and it was funny. He was talking about how he would buy edited comics from newsstands that they had apparently butchered the panels because they were trying to get them into a certain square format because of the way people were obsessed with Italian comics.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you know, his starting point for comics. It's just these different, where we all start. It was just kind of fun to hear.
Yeah.
Especially how different these ones were.
Yeah. Especially, like, they all started in a different place. And I remember Angel saying what got him into drawing for comics is he would look at a comic and be like, this character wouldn't do that, so I'm going to draw it the way I would do it. And, and it's kind of essentially like, I'm going to create fan fiction of this before that was a thing. And, you know, you just turn that into a career.
Casually.
One of the interesting things that came out of the panel for me was when Jerry Conway was talking about him, and I believe he said Stan Lee. I didn't write it down, though. He was talking to Stan about killing off Gwen, and at first the idea was to kill off either Aunt May or Mary Jane, and they ended up deciding those characters were too important to kill off, so let's just kill off Gwen Stacy. and then Stan was like, but I want Gwen to come back, but they didn't want to have this character come back that made such an impact on Peter's life. And so they ended up making this like clone saga, and that's why that happened. And just like this series of events that went down behind the scenes of Gwen Stacy's death was very fascinating to me.
And also, I think Jerry Conway was talking about how, like, when it finally did come out, didn't Stanley was like, wrote, nah, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
So, and that was cool. And when he said Gwen Stacy's like one of the only characters in comic books that stayed dead, I actually had to think about that, because I hear the name Gwen Stacy a lot, but yeah, she hasn't ever actually come back to life. And that's so rare in comics. Like, I can't think of a single character that hasn't died and come back to life.
I mean, that's kind of the trope, right? You always joke about, well, people don't really stay dead, especially when you explain to me Dark Phoenix.
Exactly. There's a reason why retconning is a thing. And, you know, time travel is always joked about and stuff like that in comics, because it's like, oh, who's coming back from the dead this time? But not Gwen Stacy.
I mean, I think about that now. Spider-Man really is kind of a sad story, because it's about, he's this kid and he just loses people.
Yeah.
And they don't come back. Uncle Ben doesn't come back. Gwen Stacy doesn't come back. His daughter doesn't come back.
But it's so real and relatable in a way that other comics, especially at the time, weren't doing. So I mean, that's why Spider-Man had such longevity.
That just reminded me of there was a portion where, the three of them were discussing why we love Spider-Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who brought it up, but someone had said, oh, our current Spider-Man is kind of shied away from these like humble origins where the street level crime, street level criminals that we usually see Spider-Man fighting, we don't see that anymore. We see him fighting gigantic threats, and it's all of a sudden it's these street level crimes don't have any really significance. But it's because Spider-Man, started out doing that. It was so personable. It's the street level crimes that affect us, the reader.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about like, oh, when Peter grows older, that's why we like young Peter so much. Because all of a sudden he's like Tony Stark. And we're like, well, that's not these origins that are resonant with us.
Yeah. And I remember when they said that, I thought back to you because...
And also because I looked at you.
Oh, yeah, that too. By the way, just the faces Alan gave me throughout the whole convention were just top notch. And I just wish people could see them. I just got a kick out of it, but little tangent aside, I thought of you because I remember when Far From Home, the trailer dropped, and I was saying how I was excited and you weren't excited.
I was kind of skeptical.
Yeah, and I think it had to do essentially with this, like he's going off and, dealing with this big threat. And it's not as personal and street level as it was before.
Yeah, it felt like it was missing that. The home.
Yeah. After they said that, I was like, oh, I get it.
Although I will say, tangent, since then, I've kind of warmed up to the Far From Home movie because now they've taken this angle of Peter trying to do right by this father figure in his life. And I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, which we wouldn't have gotten without Iron Man's death. Rest in peace. Spoilers.
Rest in peace. I think the most shocking kind of moment in the panel for me, and one that kind of made me realize some things I took for granted. Jerry Conway he was speaking about when he was, an early writer, how he thought comics as an enterprise was going to fail. Remember, he said that he never thought comics would become a part of pop culture, that, in about 5 years, it was just going to be nothing.
Right. And I do remember that. And that was around the time he created The Punisher. And he was saying it was just a character, he never thought that The Punisher would be a thing because he kind of just made him without thinking that the comic book industry had any longevity.
Oh my god, just another theme for this week. A lot of these characters we love are somehow just always start out as some of these insignificant thoughts somehow, like
yeah,
somehow Punisher or Teen Titans
somehow like the greatest characters to come out of comic books got created, just cuz, and not with like as much thought and care as you would think because they're so amazing.
But no, when he said that, just like I was so shocked because like think about like where we are right now. Pop culture has like absorbed all of nerd culture essentially.
Yeah.
Even D&D is like super hot right now.
Yeah.
Like it's only a matter of time before LARPing is, but like
yeah, being a nerd is like super in right now, and people will say they're nerds without knowing what the definition of a nerd really is.
That made me realize, like, wow, like, all these things, how popular comics and superheroes are right now, I've kind of, like, just taken that popularity for granted.
Yeah.
We didn't really have to live through this time where it was so unknown, first off, their jobs would even have any security to it.
Yeah, they were, oh man, the amount of money I heard being thrown around on these people that worked on these incredible comics and how much they made back in their essential heyday. Like, I don't know how they did it. Like, it had to come out of just pure love for this medium and these characters, because they sure weren't they sure weren't putting bread on the table.
Oh my god, yeah, like it was this repeated story we kept hearing about these early comic writers and artists, like during the convention, how they were working for next to nothing and they're just chasing their dreams. And now, like, everything we have now is built on that hard work they put in.
Yeah, and it's so inspirational.
Thank you so much. The work on Spider-Man, like, I have Into the Spider-Verse now. I think I can safely say my newest favorite film ever. It's beating out Lion King.
Hey.
So thank you, and it was an amazing panel. So the second panel we went to was one where we got to listen to was it two actors from Power Rangers. And so I don't know how much Power Rangers was a part of your childhood.
Power Rangers was a huge part of my childhood. And it was one of those things that kind of got passed down to me because my older cousin was really into Power Rangers. And so since we were just always together, I just happened to latch onto it with him. And even once I was done with it, my little cousin latched on to that too. So it stuck around even after I was kind of done with it. So I knew a lot about it. But I loved the heck out of Power Rangers, specifically the Pink Ranger, who I was told at the time that I couldn't be because she's pink. But I digress on that story. Yeah, seeing the Pink Ranger from the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, her and the green/white ranger whose names are
Amy Jo Johnson and Jason David Frank, respectively.
Just seeing them, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very surreal. Especially because you remember seeing them as a child, and now you're an adult.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, I was literally single-digit age when I saw these people. And now I'm like 23, I'm like, I was happy, but also a little conflicted about like, how do I do the feel?
Yeah, and it's funny because Amy Jo Johnson looks pretty the same as she did back then, which is kind of weird. She has that Asian thing going on. And Tommy still looks good for his age, but he definitely looks different because he had like the long hair and stuff when he was in Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. And to think that they were like in their 20s when they filmed the Power Rangers is kind of, I just thought that was very interesting because they're kind of in their heyday of adulthood and they're filming this thing for children that they probably didn't know would become this huge phenomenon either. But it did, and now they're here. So I thought that was really cool.
Before we talk more about the panel, I wanted to mention the moderator, because we got to meet her too. Her name is Perry Nemiroff.
Yes.
Again, sorry for butchering names. But both Perry and Koi are from Collider, and like we got the chance to talk to them, and like there's the role of the panel moderator who like guides the conversation and makes the whole panel palatable for the audience to digest, right?
Right.
And like I feel like Koi and Perry did such an amazing job.
Oh yeah. Before this, like I went to Anime Expo and I went to a couple of their panels, and then we went to Level Up Expo and went to their panels. And not to say any of those panel moderators did bad, but I didn't know how important a panel moderator was until I seen these two like do their thing. And they just like drive like how well the panel essentially is gonna go. Like, and that was like just, I don't know, it was a big eye opener, and it made me respect their craft essentially.
But yeah, no, even further on, I'm just gonna like, when I saw other panels with Perry, like, oh my god, these, and also Koi, like, they know their stuff. Like, They are prepared with questions. Their energy is so infectious. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were great. So, Collider, I don't know how much you're paying them. Maybe it's not enough, though.
But Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
I didn't grow up on the original like you and Sus did, so I didn't know Amy Jo Johnson, but I actually didn't realize I recognized him until later. But Jason David Frank also did the Black Ranger on Dino Thunder, which was one of the ones I did grow up
on. Yeah, and it was interesting because after Mighty Morphin, like, I dropped off. I think I went on maybe a season later, but this dude went on for like 6 seasons of the show, playing different characters, and like that in itself was very mind-blowing.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Someone had asked like how many seasons were you in, when he said like 6 or 7. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, like he either really loved Power Rangers or just really needed a job. So I know like the panel is about Power Rangers, and the panel's like about Spider-Man or about Spider-Man, but to hear like the people that do these things, what they're up to now, I think is really fascinating. And so when they talk about that, I think some people think it kind of takes away from the panel, but I want to know what these people are up to. Like Amy and Jason were both discussing how they're like writers and directors now because of the Power Rangers, that kind of opened this doorway for them to get into. And I thought that was just really neat. And, I came out thinking, oh, I want to go see what other things they've done. So
yeah, we kind of had this conversation at some point where it was like, yeah, we want to see this stuff because, Power Rangers was a big part of our lives and their lives, but we know it's not all of their life. They've lived a lot of life, clearly. So it's nice to like catch up with them, and it humanizes them.
Yeah, which you always need.
Right, especially Koi had brought this up where like celebrity is nonsense.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's also hard though because I'm kind of in the boat where I'm like, don't meet your celebrities because then you'll be let down.
Oh.
Because, you just have a certain expectation on what kind of person they're going to be. And I rather just not have that expectation and, just admire them from afar, essentially. I don't know. I guess that's weird. And, after seeing how wonderful these people are, maybe I would have liked to meet them in person, but it's still kind of weird to me.
I had a thought like that. Every time we exited a panel, I'm like, I want to talk to these people, but they're celebrities. I can't talk to them.
But celebrity doesn't exist, Allen.
You're right. It's nonsense. It's an excuse for my timidity, but it was kind of surreal to think, because at the beginning of the panel, I'm just like, they're doing a lot of stuff that isn't Power Ranger stuff. And, I had come to the realization in the middle, like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. We get to see like how their lives have changed since then.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, they do these kind of panels all the time. And it's not that they don't want to be there, but, they want to talk about themselves too, not just this one topic for every single convention they go to, the same questions over and over again. So it's nice to see when these people that are doing these panels are having fun doing them too.
And my God, like, they seemed like they were having so much fun.
Yeah, their chemistry was fantastic. They were just joking around, and it was pretty great.
Oh, that was nice to see. It seems like Amy and Jason and some of the other original cast members, they still keep in touch with each other because they were talking about like showing each other stuff on Instagram.
Yeah. But
not just like their happiness, like bring it to the people in the crowd. Like, I was not one that was super into Power Rangers, but I got to see like all these like mega fans and how happy they were to be out there. And when it was time to line up for questions, these people were like bursting at the seams with eagerness to speak to Amy and Jason.
Yeah, I think, well, I didn't go to the Sean Astin one though, but I think that line for questions was the longest. Like, there were so many people in that line, and I knew they weren't even gonna make a dent in in the amount of time they had left.
I did feel a little bad because the final person in line was a mom with her child.
Yeah.
And at that point, they were just like speeding through questions.
Yeah. I mean, time constraints kind of suck, but they were there the whole convention, so you could have still went and met them if you wanted.
The funniest moment from that panel was just the reveal that Jason, David, Frank stole so much stuff from the Power Rangers.
From the set? That was amazing to hear, because if I think about it, I would have done the same exact thing.
You would have stolen costumes?
Heck yeah! I didn't create the character. I essentially made this character, and you want to just get rid of everything? No, I'm taking it.
Oh yeah, he did reveal to us that apparently Disney destroys costumes, which was weird to hear.
Yeah, like, come on, Disney, at least know your worth. Make some money off that stuff.
But yeah, he had like 6 of the outfits, or was it 6 of the helmets?
I think it was 6 of the outfits. I'm not 100% sure. I do remember he said he had the dagger that the Green Ranger used, which was super cool. And I was like, man, if I could get my hands on that.
So I think actually the next panel we went to was anime related.
Yep.
So there was a panel for meeting the voice actors on, was it My Hero Academia, the English dub? And they had the people that played Tokoyami and Kirishima, and that was Josh Greel and Justin Cook. So Sus made this fun, interesting observation during the panel. It was just like, you see these two up at the panel, and there's these like big, gruff men, but they were like the sweetest dudes. They were talking about like, it was this kind of interesting thing. They were talking about how they were the voices of the characters, but it also seemed like they were kind of the parents of the characters.
Yeah.
Or just like kind of all the kid characters in My Hero Academia. So many of them were wondering like that thing you do in parenting, right? Where you wonder the choices that your kids are going to make. And a lot of them are hoping that like, you know, they're going to be heroes, but they know that they're going to have to leverage some difficult decisions, and seeing like what those things are going to be when they pop in the storyline. Because also they have not read the manga, so they don't know what's going to show up.
Yeah.
So it was really sweet to see them.
It was really nice. And for them to actually talk about their own kind of conspiracy theories, essentially, about who like, you know, Tokoyami, like, how did he become this bird person?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Josh Greel going into like, how far does this bird thing go? Was he hatched out of an egg?
Yeah. And, you know, does Dark Shadow is he actually like a metaphor for it was just very interesting because they're so invested in their own characters, and that's just really great.
This was something I never thought about when it comes to kind of deciding voices. They revealed to us how they were cast when Funimation was looking for dubs, and you auditioned for 3 roles. They had just Bakugo, Midoriya, and I think it was Ida, right?
Ida, yeah.
Yeah, so those were the 3 roles people were auditioning for, and that was it. It wasn't like you were auditioning for the side characters. And then for Josh Greel and Justin Cook, they think both auditioned for Bakugo?
No, Ida.
Ida, oh crap, thank you. And then neither of them got it, but then they just get the call back from the voicing director. And they were talking about how like for the voicing director, you just have the voices in your mind. Like, this is what they're going to sound like, this character. Once you pick that person, that's it. That's them now.
Yeah.
And for the dub, it's like they've nailed it. So like how it's crazy that you have these voices in your head. You already know what these people are going to sound like in all these future episodes, these situations that were not included in the audition, and you just nail it.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And just, the kind of work that goes into being a voice director or caster, you have to pick somebody and know that they're going to do this person justice, essentially.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting tidbit. And they were saying, or they had been asked a question who they would like to play other than the characters they were given. And they said, well, this person gave me the character and they know better than I do, essentially. So I'm actually fine with this character and I actually love this character and they were right to give me this character. So I didn't realize how much of an impact like a voicing director / caster had.
I found out after that Justin Cook also voices Haru on Fruits Basket, both in the 2001 and 2019. And when I found that, I'm like, oh my god, I should have talked to him.
Right?
Yeah, because Fruits Basket was something I loved so much. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe you were there in my childhood and I didn't fucking realize it.
It was too late and they were gone, just like everyone else.
That was also just another fun panel. And we got to learn more about how voiceover is done.
Yeah.
So at this point, we kind of split up on panels.
Yeah, I ended up going to a comic writing and then a novel writing panel, which there's not much to say about these panels because you're essentially just learning. And, I don't want to give you a lecture, especially because I'm not a teacher, but they had some very interesting tidbits of advice that they would give new people into the comic and novel industry. So that was really nice, and I do recommend going to one if you're interested because you're there at a convention anyway. You might as well talk to someone who has experience, and they're always open. Even after the panel, they have booths down in the exhibitor / artist alley that you can go and talk to them about their book or about, things that you have questions about. So I thought that was really cool. And there were 3 of them. The last one in particular was really cool. And we didn't actually go to that one till the last day. So this is skipping a little bit ahead in time, but that guy was super cool. And the way he talked about a comic was very different because he collaborated with so many other people and was doing essentially a concept comic. And we got to go actually talk to him with his booth, and he was super friendly. And I definitely learned a lot, about writing and comics and how to take criticism, which was something I didn't really know I was very lacking until I listened to them talk about it. So.
And then I went off to see Sean Astin.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't have interest in writing or anything. It's just I think it was after the last season of Stranger Things. I'm like, oh my god, we get to see Bob.
Hey, I wish I could have been there. So.
Oh my gosh. The Sean Astin panel was so great. I don't know how to describe, but other than Sean Astin's just such a lovely, lovely man.
Such a dad.
Oh my god, very much a dad. His daughter was there, and at one point, he brought his daughter on stage and had us congratulate her because she recently graduated Harvard, people.
Hey.
And throughout the entire panel, when he was reciting his favorite movie quotes or moments from his life, he would have to constantly turn around and ask his daughter. Or hey, what was that line? Or oh, what was that movie Mom watched? I want to repeat this quote that we got from Sean Astin because he was giving us a lot of advice about, acting and growing up as a second generation actor and, things we need to consider about being an actor. He said, when you are passionate about other people's work, extraordinary things happen.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm down with that.
And then he also gave us some advice that his mother had given him, because she was an actress, and yeah, he got advice from his mom when he was growing up as a kid actor. And I think the one I liked was be better off camera than on camera. It was just like cultivating that relationships you have off camera, right? Being a good person to the people that work on set. That goes much further than, appearing like a good actor on camera.
Mm-hmm.
This one, he told us, I don't even remember why he told us this story, but he was telling us the story of, someone had asked him about directing Fantastic Four, because they had heard he was going to direct Fantastic Four. It was right after he finished filming Lord of the Rings. He had gotten back from New Zealand, and he wanted to be a director. He's like, I'm going to direct Fantastic Four. And keep in mind, he hadn't read any Fantastic Four. But he was so, ready. He had contacted his attorney, who was working for, apparently, the biggest, Hollywood attorney at the time. His name was, what was it? Jake Bloom.
Okay.
I believe was his name. And he told Jake Bloom to get him a call with Tom Rothman, who I don't remember who he was, but he was the person that was the person to greenlight him to direct Fantastic Four. And the whole time he was just saying, these people, these, big names were this kid's flipping crazy. Because he actually had no directing, under his belt or anything at the time.
Right.
So, but I mean, still, his attorney got Jake Bloom to get him the meeting, to get the script. And when he finally met with Tom Rothman for the first time, initially he was just dismissive. And Sean Astin had to be promise me that you're going to give me at least a chance. And then when he did that, he's, reluctantly got that chance. He went down to Midtown Comics, bought, all the Fantastic Four he could, and just started going to town, reading, studying on it.
Nice.
Yep. And then just he had met with someone else about going through the script, and Sean Astin was talking about how he was giving his bona fides, how he, wrote this, and this. And the guy was like, no one cares. The only thing people are going to care about is, do you know what this character would do in this moment? Do you know how to make the changes to make this scene or this character better? I'm like, that was kind of crazy to hear. It's applying for jobs and stuff, we're told, hey, build up this amazing resume, right?
Right.
But it seems like that didn't matter for something like this.
That is interesting.
And then Sean Astin was talking about, when he heard that, he actually felt a great relief. Because, he doesn't need the bona fide. He just needs to know, what to write or the changes to make for as a director. So then when he finally goes back to Tom Rothman for the pitch meeting, I assume is what that was called, Tom Rothman was initially dismissive. And somehow, Sean Astin was talking about, throughout the meeting, slowly, he got Rothman to stand up and to pace around the room and to ask questions. And then it became this back and forth. And he got Rothman to seriously consider him this kid who had been away from America for about 5 years, who came back and suddenly wanted to direct a movie he knew nothing about. And unfortunately, we knew that he never directed this movie.
Yeah.
He was talking about how when he got the call, he was like, okay, this is it. And Rothman just said, I hope you can hear the good in what I'm about to say.
Oh, no.
And Sean Astin, did the motion of, biting his finger. It was like, okay. But that was, the part, that's when Rothman brought up, hey, you made me seriously consider you.
Yeah. That's a serious testament of how far passion can go. So I really like that. That's a good story.
Oh, my goodness. Sean Astin's 48 right now. He is the most energetic 48-year-old I've ever met. Because the energy and the vigor he had in telling us this story.
Nice. Man, I wish I would have went.
That was the parts from the Sean Astin panel that I remember and were really fun and interesting for me.
Nice.
So then that brings us to the final day of panels. We went to 2. The first one we went to was Sal, you mentioned it. It was a world building workshop.
Yeah, it was another comic writing panel, essentially.
The workshop was run by Jim Kruger. We actually had the pleasure of meeting him on the exhibit hall. He was a really nice dude.
Yeah.
But he had handed us out this comic that him and Tom Bilyeu and Steve Aoki and his manager had been working on. Was it Jim and Tom were the script writers, I believe? And I remember the first thing we showed up late, first of all. But when he handed us the comics and I saw Steve Aoki's name and then learned like, hey, they adapted like one of his albums to a comic.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, what the? So immediately as a world building workshop, I'm like, what's this gonna do?
Yeah, it was cool. And, you know, receiving the comic, like, first of all, it seemed like a very professionally done comic, which was very weird because as he was talking about himself and stuff, I don't know, he made himself seem a little bit smaller than I think he actually is.
Oh, did he?
I think so. Maybe that was just how I perceived it, but like this dude, like he made a really great comic, and the writing and art, just everything about the comic is really top notch. So I was very impressed with the comic, and you know, as a whole.
So the comic is called Neon Future, and by the way, you can get a free digital copy if you go to the publisher's website. It's comics.impacttheory.com.
Yes.
But just starting with the art, like, oh my god, it wasn't the centerfold, and I really felt like it should have been when they showed us the Japanese inspired like world and all the cherry blossoms and butterfly motifs. I'm like, holy crap, this is beautiful.
Yeah, and all the neon lights, because it's very sci-fi. It's very pleasing to look at. So,
and then Jim Kruger he took us page by page through the comic and explained, like, for the world building, you know, at the beginning we introduce the rules of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's what we do at the beginning. We set the rules, we show how the world is. And for the ending, we want to show how has the world changed.
Yeah.
I guess when you put it into words, it was really cool for me to hear.
It very much makes sense. So, you know, it's something we just automatically understand when we're reading or ingesting. That's definitely not the right word. But when we're watching these things or reading, like, we get it, but until it's put into the words, you completely understand these are the kind of components that make a good story. You know, his advice was very more technical and a lot more helpful in certain ways, and he kind of, I don't want to say dumbed down, but he expressed like his ideas in a way that made a lot of sense to people that might not know certain things, you know?
Like me, who was not a writer.
Yeah, so he was great, and you know, just going through each page and talking about like what you do and why you do it makes so much sense, and more people should do that when trying to explain how to create a comic.
I actually wrote down just specifically the advice he, you know, gave us, and I think it might be helpful to actually repeat what he had told.
Okay.
So, just like general writing advice he had given was that you should read something every day, watch something every day, and then write something every day.
As well as tell someone something every day. Tell them a story. Essentially pitch a story, because he was talking about the importance of knowing how to pitch a story, and that as a comic book writer that you will have to be pitching things all the time, which I didn't know. So that was good to know.
And then I think the best, or at least most interesting advice revolved around criticism.
Yeah. He was talking about the types of criticism you want to listen to. And, this is something I actually really struggled with in the past with my writing. So it was nice to, hear him talk about it. And he said that the only type of criticism that you should be essentially accepting is from the people that want to understand and make your story better for you and not for them. So people that say, well, I would have did it like this, aren't helping you make the best story you can make. They're essentially making the story they can make. And that's advice you shouldn't be taking. As well as people that will just say your work is bad or, wow, your work is good. That's also not, criticism you should be taking very heavily, because they either don't know enough or, they're not giving anything specific that actually helps you.
So then that was advice for writers, but I had brought it up later that, like, I felt like that was good advice for people, when you're asked to give criticism, like, look for that's how you should think about formatting your criticism. Be like, hey, I understand what you're trying to do here. This is, I'm stealing what he said here, but I understand what you're trying to do here. Like, try to understand what the writer's trying to do, and then bring up areas that, were confusing for you, right? Like, I didn't see how this followed this or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if this is the type of criticism you should be taking in, it's also the type of criticism you should be giving to others.
And then also, Jim Kruger, when we were talking to him on the exhibitor hall, he was nice enough to give us kind of a sneak peek into something else that is coming up called The No Ones. It's this indie comic that's going to come out. And the description we were given was it's a team of celebrity superheroes. And what we see on the outside is that, it's all glitz and glamour. You've got two superheroes who are married, all these other people that are super happy on the outside. But then when we see behind the scene, the married ones are actually divorced for several months. Most of them are pretty jaded about superhero work. And then one day when they get called, they accidentally kill a homeless person after resolving whatever issue that they were called for. And they panic and they end up hiding the body.
Yeah.
And then the following day, they find that the entire world forgets about them. And then the interesting part was, like, Jim Kruger tells us, like, this is the part where all of our superheroes in the story, they separate, and some decide that, hey, they can now actually do good in the world with their powers using this anonymity that they have.
Yeah.
Or they can return to the lives that they lost because they were celebrities.
Yeah, it was a very interesting elevator pitch, essentially, of this new comic that's coming out that reminded me of, like, several different things. Like, you mentioned The Wicked and the Divine. The whole hiding up the body thing kind of reminds me of, like, Pretty Little Liars, which I know has nothing to do with it, but and, like, these like ragtag kind of heroes also gives me some kind of, like, Doom Patrol-ish vibes, because they all kind of suck.
I really got the, like, Umbrella Academy vibe, because
yeah, there you
the
go.
celebrity, but it was like what we see reality versus, the facade, where Vanya released a tell-all book, and what, Mr. Hargreaves showed up was not what was happening.
Yeah. And it was super cool of him, because he was like, yeah, hey, when this thing does come out, get in touch with me and we can make, like, an announcement or something. And that was kind of me thinking, I wonder if he thinks we're a lot bigger than we actually are.
Oh my god, yeah, I was thinking, like, oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Kruger. I don't think we can give you
the attention you want. Right.
But, it just sounded super cool, and I would ask, like, hey, when's it going to come out? And he told us by the 26th of June, or even earlier.
So, if we do end up getting some information about that, we'll definitely let you guys know, because, just from hearing what the story's about, I'm super down to know and read this story. So
just repeat, it's called The No Ones. So then the final panel we got to attend, which I think was the best way to have ended Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con, was it was a farewell panel for George Perez because he just retired or recently retired.
Yes. For the people that don't know who George Perez is, I didn't even know who he was, and I felt bad about it after I figured out who he was. He was the creator of the new Teen Titans, and he did like one of the most significant runs on Wonder Woman as well.
Yeah, the Wonder Woman we know and love is because of him.
Yeah. Teen Titans was my childhood, and I love Wonder Woman. So the fact that I didn't know who this guy was, I felt really bad, but you know, I'm glad I got to know the impact he gave towards these properties to make them what they are today. And it was sad to see him go because I never actually got to see him do more.
But the panel.
Yeah.
First, I think off just like George Perez is... I don't think... He's such like an interesting person. I don't even know... He's all amazing, but I can't even dissect the parts that are amazing because there's so many like interesting and strange things, and like he's lived such an interesting life.
Yeah, his personality was definitely harder to pin down than other people's. Especially when he just like threw everybody for a loop. So I want to tell this real quick.
Because... Oh my god, we're starting with this one. Okay.
Yes. Because he goes and he talks about how he doesn't understand people that say like, oh, I don't like Captain America because he's a Boy Scout. And how, you know, superheroes should be superheroes because they want to do good for the sake of, you know, doing good and no other reason. And that was so heartwarming and very nice to hear. And then he goes and talks about how he does these like fetish comics and stuff on the side. And these videos and stuff as well. And I'm just like, what is happening right now?
Oh my god. Talk about like how to flip the energy in the crowd like that. It was so... from where we were standing, I was just like, I was having a great time. It was so entertaining to see like, oh my god, all these people.
Yeah, it's just, it's so funny because you're like, oh, he's this guy. No, he's not that guy. He's this mix of these both separate amazing things, but it was just so weird to see them mashed together. And, you know, just all the things he talked about and did was great, but it's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain, but oh my god, is it great. If people, I mean, now we know about like his bondage art. So people out there, like, he does superheroine bondage art. Like, check it out, support it, because he's doing more of that now that he's retired.
Yeah.
It was really heartwarming just to see him, like, he was thanking the crowd so much throughout the entire thing. He'd given a story about how after, like, you know, going to conventions for 30 years, he said he was just very jaded about the whole experience, like, writing comics, meeting people, and the thing that brought him hope again about, like, meeting people was cosplay.
Yeah.
Like, when cosplay had finally come out, he said he felt so honored that people honored him by creating these, like, costumes, these elaborate costumes, by dissecting his art and his stories to make, you know, his characters come to life. And he was thanking the fans and the crowd for cosplaying and for honoring him.
Yeah. And you know, that makes so much sense too, because to be in the industry for so long and then to see like his things change and be adapted so much. If you've ever seen the new Teen Titans, which is his run back in the 80s, I don't remember when that one came out, but you know, Allen and I, and probably you too, listener, grew up on the TV show Teen Titans, which is completely different than what his Teen Titans looked like and felt like. And, then we got like the Teen Titans Go and this adaptation that I thought was bad, but let's not talk about that. And, to see these things and the thing you made change so much, but then you go to conventions and people create cosplay and are so passionate about the characters you wrote, not just the Teen Titans from our era, but from his era. And hearing him talk about that too, where he said he didn't really like the Teen Titans we grew up on until he realized that people would watch it and love it and then go back to like the roots of Teen Titans and watch it and then fall in love with that as well. And he grew to appreciate that too. So that was super cool.
I just remembered that this was the part where when you're talking about Teen Titans and how he did the Teen Titans because it was a deal he had, like, hey, I'll do Teen Titans if you let me do one issue of Justice League.
Yeah. And it goes back to like the whole with the Punisher thing, he just did these characters just because he was trying to get in on the Justice League. He didn't really care about it as much, and they became this like massive phenomenon that would change nerd culture, which is that's so crazy to think about.
The word I thought, it was world shattering. This thing we love so much, it was, the way it started out was just a speck of dust that was essentially like trying to being brushed away.
It was essentially like a doodle.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's great.
But George Perez, like, bless his heart, he's amazing.
Yeah, and we definitely hate to see you go, but your legacy will definitely live on.
And so will your fetish art. Those were all the panels we had attended. We wanted to get into our time in the artist alley because we love art, and yes. Maybe we love art a little too much because our wallets are crying.
Oh my goodness. Like, listeners, nerds, if you've never been to a convention before, you need to plan out money for that artist alley, because I don't care who you are, you're gonna go in there and spend money you do not have. So plan for it, please. Don't be like me.
The artist alley is a true test of your impulse control.
Oh yeah, like, it's crazy. There's just so many talented people.
Yeah, and then you're gonna see something and you're like, oh my god, I need this now, and you're not gonna be able to stop yourself. But before we drop those names that we really want you guys to check out, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons.
Yes.
We get to make this show because of support from our patrons. So, thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Eloy. We're going to be eternally grateful that this show means something to you, because it means a whole hell of a lot to us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for your sacrifice. The nut jar is proud. Always got to add that.
All right, but first, artists that we always have to get out of the way, our lovely, lovely friends who gave us safe harbor in just this writhing mass of just convention goers.
Which, by the way, I can't say enough of how thankful we are for our friends, our artist friends that happen to be there and, just make our time there a lot more bearable. We get to stop by their booths and hang out, and we use them as storage as well sometimes, which is great. But
oh yeah, especially the storage.
Yeah, we get to talk to them and see how they're doing, and just like this, it's just this supportive system. This thing is fun, but it's a lot of work. So to relax and have fun with friends while doing it is, I don't know if we could do it without them.
Thank you to Kazel, Kazeloo, Cazeloo on Twitter, or Kazelr, Cazelr on Instagram. Sammy, who is at SAMIR IIKINNSS on Twitter and also Instagram. Cat Lacey K at LACYK_art on Twitter and on Instagram at Argent Kitty. Our friend Drizzy, who is at DRIZZY Doodles on Twitter, and I believe the same on Instagram. And also, was it someone new we met? Was Sammy's friend who does jewelry, CMC Stone Jewelry on Instagram and Facebook. So thank you so much for housing us. Check out their art. It's amazing. There's something for everyone. Anime fans, movie fans, Avengers fans, cartoon fans.
Yeah.
But the first artist outside of our initial friend group that I thought was we should bring up is James Buscema. I hope I pronounced his last name right. So I'd only ever seen him on social media prior, just from Sir retweeting him. Did you know him before?
I did not.
All right. Well, we finally got to meet him here at Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con. Oh my God. Okay. My most prized possession for art that I own now came from him at this convention. He draws, how would you describe this? It's kind of dark.
Yeah, it's a very horror / dark fantasy. It's really good stuff. Especially he has this line of art prints he does that he calls the gargoyles, which are these massive gargoyles of different creatures, and the amount of detail in these prints are so just his artwork is so mesmerizing.
I'm obsessed with the clean lines.
Yeah. It's such the right amount of detail and horror, I guess.
That our words just can't do justice.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, that's super cool and super twisted.
It was funny because when I had bought that sketch from him, he did a sketch of the Batman Who Laughs. When I bought it, it turned out he had just drawn this thing and it was already gone. I'm like, yay. I felt good. I felt happy about that. I don't know why. Thank you, James. Please check him out. JamesBousema.
So, an artist that actually was at Level Up Expo, the Jetty Jet show.
Hey!
He did a question for us before, and he when I went up and said hi to him, he actually remembered me vaguely, but he still remembered me. And I got to talking to him again, and I actually bought another piece from him, which was the KDA group from League of Legends. And my words can't do justice for his art either, because it's this watercolor kind of washed out look that it's totally my aesthetic. And I feel like if I see him, I just always have to buy something from him. So, he's super cool, and he's always very friendly and wants to know how the podcast is and how my experience with the convention is. So I want to give him a shout out real quick, because he was great, and I hope to see him at another convention, because he's awesome.
I saw that KDA print with you too. I'm like, oh my God. It was front and center on display, and that thing looked amazing.
Yeah. And the first thing I said to him, I was like, is this print new? And he was so shocked that I would know that it was new. I was like, yeah, I'm a big fan. I follow you. So that was a cool exchange.
This one, trying to think words to do justice, but it's actually a charity foundation called Change for Love. So the number 4. And what they are is actually they're a charity where we have disabled artists who draw art and they sell it. And for each copy they sell, they give another copy to sick children in hospitals. So then we found their booth at Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con, and I got the opportunity to talk to one of the founders, who was Bart Hawkins, was it? He had told me that, he was a special ed teacher and an art teacher, and he just kind of combined these things and made Change for Love. And at the convention, they were doing this really cool thing where it was just like, any price. Someone gave them their wristband and got a piece of art. And I mean, that was amazing because these were legitimately good pieces of art. I got a Lion King print.
Yeah.
But that was just really cool. And they're Utah based. I'd ask, hey, are you thinking about expanding? And the way their model works is they get kiosks in malls. They sell their art there. They use the proceeds there to help expand, pay the artists that they have, and deliver art to local hospitals. Oh, actually, the print I got was cool. The original copy that oh my god, I forgot to ask who drew that one. But the original got sent to a conservationist group in Southern Africa. So that was neat. I just more charities, getting the opportunity to meet, these cool people trying to make a difference with what they have in this world. Just check them out on Twitter. They're at change_4_love. And check out their prints because actually they're really, really good. Or you can visit them at changeforlove.org. That's probably a better place to find information.
So another artist I would like to bring up, her name is Sarah Barry Fenton. You can find her on Instagram at Zealous. I'm just going to spell that out. It's ZealousCeles. And she had this amazing print of Daenerys.
Oh my god.
From Game of Thrones, which, by the way, I bought the print, Alan bought a print, and Kat, our art friend, also bought a print from her. Her artwork was so cool, and she captured the moment in Game of Thrones where Dany gets up in season 8 and the dragon gets up behind her and like spreads its wings. And, if anyone knows that scene I'm talking about, is fantastic. And so she did a drawing of that scene in her art style, which looks so good. And she was so friendly, and I got to talking to her about Game of Thrones and how, we were like both disappointed about how it ended, but we still love this character so much. And I was telling her how I was conflicted because I want to buy it, but I didn't like season 8, and she's like, I understand, but and she assured me too, like she didn't even say like, oh, but buy the print anyway. She said, don't worry, I'm making another one of Dany in her like wedding, or like the white dress that she's known for. She's like, yeah, I'm drawing that soon, so look out for that.
Oh my god. Okay, there were moments browsing the art hall that I felt like some people were pushy, and that's so nice to hear. She was understanding.
Yeah, she wasn't even like, oh, please buy this. She was like, don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna have this. Look out for this. So she was super cool, and she gave us a question too.
She did. Oh, that was great. She gave a good question too. But I remember when you brought me to the booth to buy the print. Because I wanted to buy it from my sister, and I get there, I'm like, shit, she has Sailor Moon prints too that are good.
Yeah, she was super cool. And it was funny because I don't know why, but so like I don't want to talk to anyone, and I usually let Alan or Sus.
I mostly let Sus
deal with like the talking, and so I'm usually a last resort, but on this last day, I actually did a lot more talking than usual with people. Ooh. So I'm proud of myself for that. I'm just gonna go ahead and humble brag myself, but
I'm proud of you. You got out there on the convention and talked to people.
Yeah, and I met some cool people. So
that's the great part about these conventions. We get to meet cool people.
Yeah.
I've got an artist that, goddamn, I really want to buy something from him, and every time, because we saw him at Level Up Expo, and it keeps getting to this moment where, crap, we spent too much money. We can't And I would pass by the booth, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't buy anymore. His name is Chris Keiko. On Instagram, it's at CCAYCO. I don't know if you remember from Level Up Expo, but he was here too, and he does the drawings where he fits every character from the series into one picture.
Oh,
he had the League of Legends one with all the champions scrunched together. He had Pokemon. The most recent one he did was Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. It was actually kind of unfortunate that he was like all the way in the back of the convention.
Yeah, he was. But I don't know. We had been talking to artists about like how this year's went, and it didn't seem like position has a pretty big effect, but it seemed like something other was off about this year.
Yeah. I don't know.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about con logistics. We're here to talk about this guy's amazing art. So I had asked him like, how long does it take you to draw these? And he said the shortest one that took him was this Rick and Morty one, and that was 150 drawing hours.
Jesus. Like,
I think the Dragon Ball Z one he just finished, and he explained to me a little like the process of how he does it. He has to draw and finish each individual character first, like lines, colors, inks, like for each character first before moving on to the next. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of outlines that it becomes like this thing that fucks with your eyes.
Yeah, it's too much of a mess to go back in. Oh man, like hearing that, his prints are like, I feel so underpriced for the amount of work he puts in that. Oh man.
The Dragon Ball Z one he just finished, I think he said it took him, it was either like 500 drawing hours or 900 drawing hours.
Jeez, man. Talk about dedication.
Yes.
But like, oh, you have to see these prints too. They're like, they're a work of art, for lack of a better term. They're so epic and so grand in scale. He draws so many characters. Oh, they're so good.
There's an Overwatch one, like the ones I wanted to get were the Overwatch and the Pokemon one.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Just like once more, CCAYCO on Instagram. And I'd asked him, hey, do you have videos of you drawing these things? He does. He has a YouTube.
Hey.
Where you can see him do the Dragon Ball Z one, and it's just like, oh my god.
Nice.
I've just got two more artists. Bear with me. One of them, or the first one, was at the Dominic Glover. He was the one that did those amazing like profile pictures.
Oh yeah, I was so tempted on getting like, oh man, I was so short on money this time that I had to pass up so many good artists.
This was at that point when I crossed by his table that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna buy 4 prints. Because he was doing like 4 for $40 and then $10 after. But then I saw he had all the Bob's Burgers characters.
Yeah.
So I got every Bob's Burgers character from him. And I love it. Bob's Burgers is something like so special to me. And he's drawn them so incredibly well. And he has all of them. And I have like the perfect place in my room to put them up.
Yeah. It's like, not to say any other artist is bad, but there's just some artists that they'll have this certain piece that just grabs you and you just have to buy it like right then and there. And I felt like, that was one of those for you.
Definitely. Like honestly, there were some full body like prints, not just profile prints they had that I wanted to get. Like there was one for the Batman Who Laughs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, I can't. Check him out. THEDOMINICGLOVER on Instagram. Like, and I need to take a picture once I finally get the pictures on the wall because like it's gonna look so cool.
Nice.
And then the final artist, not a print artist, but he was actually one of Kaisel's friends that he introduces to. His name was the Pixel Hour. He was doing perler bead art. At least that was the thing I bought from him. It was a perler bead keychain ornament for Zenyatta. And you can find him on Instagram, PIXELHOUR. I think the thing that stood out about him for me was like, he had every Overwatch character, even Baptiste, like, made, they all looked really nice. Like, I think the thing with Perler Beads is, like, you can use too much heat and it kind of looks like a melted mess.
Yeah.
No, like, I look at my keychain and I posted a picture of it on Twitter. Like, it's still, like, got a lot. I don't know what the right words are here for Perler Beads. But it's very distinct. It's like true to his name, Pixel. Like these are like pixels, basically.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to just one of those things, like how Sammy loves Kingdom Hearts. Like I wish I could love something as much as this guy loved Overwatch. But I just thought like that was cool and something that wasn't a print that I bought.
Oh yeah, right. It's funny because when I was thinking about all the stuff I bought at Anime Expo. Because I bought a lot of prints at Level Up, but at Anime Expo I spent a lot more money, but I only bought like 5-6 prints.
Whoa.
And I was like, where did all my money go? And I realized there was so much stuff I bought that weren't prints.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, okay. And, you know, I sometimes forget that there are things other than prints. And so after I'm done buying prints, I see all these like mugs and keychains and shirts and I'm like, oh, these are so cool too. And so now I'm buying these other things.
You were shopping for your cousin and it was like, oh, he doesn't want a print, he wants something with utility.
Yeah.
And it's that thing, you can buy merchandise as utility.
It's like, oh yes, that's a thing too, not just prints.
Those were the artists that we got to meet during Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con. And you know, it's because of conventions like this. Like, it's to gather these amazing people with talent together. It gets us to connect with them. So thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, this was our second convention that we went to as a podcast. And I feel like at first it kind of gave off this, like, weird, like, more professional vibe. But I think by the end of it, it ended up being this, like, very fun, very... like more of the same what we're kind of used to. So I think we just had to warm up a bit, at least for me.
No, definitely. Like I remember I brought it up to you. The energy, it felt so intimidating to me that first day.
Yeah.
But luckily everyone turned out to be cool.
Yeah. You know, when you talk to someone, they're actually really great and they don't want to kill you. I always have to remind myself that.
Oh my. Before we end, I wanted to kind of do a little catch-up kind of segment is what I'm thinking of calling it. We met some wonderful people at Level Up Expo that were here at Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con. And although we talked about some of the artists, these were some not artist booth people we talked to. First one was actually right across from our home base. Do you remember Brittany?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she Waffles Modern Life on Instagram. She ran the fashion show at Level Up Expo, and we got the chance to catch up with her again, find out, like, hey, any more fashion shows going on? Right now, it's just a break, but she did tell us, like, for next year's Level Up Expo, she's planning really big. She wants 10 designers, 200 models. Like, she told me that. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to just be a whole spectacle.
Yeah, heck yeah. I remember loving the heck out of that fashion show, so I can't wait to see that again. It was actually funny because you talked to her without me, right?
I did. You were at one of your comic writing.
Yeah, panels. I was at one of my panels. And so you got talking to her and stuff, and did she recognize you?
Sorta. She recognized... I was about to say my shape. What does that mean? Yeah, she said, you look familiar. And I introduced myself again because I guess we forgot to do that during Level Up Expo.
Right. But yeah, so I wasn't there for that. She didn't know who I was. And I swear the whole time, because I interacted with her several times without telling her who I was or that I knew her, and I swear she was looking at me like, do I know this person? but I never said anything.
Okay, you bring that up, and I had the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah, like I kept glancing because also I was doing it too. It's like, is that her?
Oh, okay.
So maybe I'm projecting, but I think that's what was happening.
Yeah, so I thought that was funny. And at the end, when we were helping all our friends pack up their stuff, And they're right next to us. And I went over to them.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I went over to them and I was like, do you guys want any kisses?
Oh, my God.
And
You used that line, really?
I used that line verbatim. And I had
lunatic.
I had those little, Hershey's Kisses candies. And I did not think anything of it until it kind of like left my mouth. And I guess they thought it was funny and adorable because they laughed and were like, oh, yeah, sure. And thank you for that, because that could have went very bad.
Oh, Sal.
I'm so awkward.
It was nice to catch up with you, Brittany. We're really looking forward to that new, really expanded fashion show.
Yeah.
Another group that we got to catch up with was Guardians of Las Vegas Cosplay. We actually met Josh, who was the founder, through Kazel, and he actually wasn't there when we caught up with them. But we found out that they're going to be working with, or there's going to be a clothing drive soon through the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, sometime either this week or next week, that they're going to be helping out with. And, I just wanted to highlight that, hey, look, if you're here in the Las Vegas area and you've got some extra clothes like I do, I've got tons of extra clothes, like consider donating it to the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. And then the other charity we got to catch up with was actually Critical Care Comics. Also, they were actually right next to Guardians of Las Vegas Cosplay. I'd asked them, hey, what events are coming up soon? They're going to be in the 4th of July parade down in downtown Summerlin.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. And they're also going to be having an event on July 6th at the Pop Shack. I'd asked about hey, what are events coming up that, people can come donate comics, because what they do is they dress up as superheroes and donate donated comics to children's hospitals. I've got a few Adventure Time comics that I've had for a while now that I'm gonna donate now.
Cool.
Yeah, so
I have a lot of comics too that I wouldn't mind donating.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Well, and then they also gave us a list of places that you can actually donate, because they're partnered with comic shops.
Nice.
So there's Cosmic Comics, Celestial Comics, Action Comics, Rogue Toys, The Nerd Bar, Millennial Family Bar. Or, this was the most surprising, you can contact them to arrange for them to pick up comics from you.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm just hot damn, okay.
Hashtag convenience.
But, yeah, it was nice to catch up with these people that we met during Level Up Expo.
Yeah, I honestly can't wait for this to be a normal thing. Hey, you're at this expo. That's cool. What you been up to? I don't know. I just love that idea.
It's, okay, I'm gonna speak it out loud. It's wishful thinking, but yeah, it's it would be nice to be a part of this community and have, these friends that you catch up with at these conventions, convention people do.
Yeah. I mean, wishful thinking, but I can dream, Harold.
That is what we got excited about this past weekend. It's this amazing thing we got to do here at Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con. Just once again, we want to thank Amazing Comic Conventions for giving us this opportunity, for letting us experience these amazing panels with these comic legends who are some of the most down-to-earth people, hardworking, humble, that we had the pleasure to meet, and also bringing us in contact with such amazing talent from Nevada, California, and the surrounding states. If you enjoyed hearing our coverage of Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con, consider sharing it with a friend. That way, this time next year when it rolls around, you guys would be interested in coming too. If you want to help out the show, then a rating on our iTunes page or our Stitcher page would help a lot. It goes a long way towards podcast visibility. Any recommendations for show improvements, you can feel free to leave in the comments of our SoundCloud page. If you want to see pictures of cool cosplay from Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con, or just pictures of us, you can follow our Instagram. If you have enjoyed the show and want to help out with producing the show, then consider becoming a patron. It's thanks to our patrons that we get to make this show. It helps cover our hosting costs, and patrons get access to some bonus content as well as a special Discord role. If you want a place to hang out with us, feel free to join our Discord server. We have dedicated channels for show improvements, topic discussions, episode debates, and nut jar offerings. All of these links can be found on our website, thosenerdscast.wixsite, that's wixsite.com/home. Sal, do you have anything to plug?
I'm sure you guys are tired of the plugs in this episode, so I'm just going to plug my Twitter, which is @Salzik, and with a recommendation to please go check out all these amazing people that made amazing Las Vegas Comic Con so great. They're all wonderful and deserve your support.
And I'll do the same. You can find me on Twitter @ArielEyes_, or you can contact us at ThoseNerdsCast on Twitter. We've been posting like links to all of these artists on our Twitter, so please go check them out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for enthusing with us, and we're going to see you again next Wednesday.
Goodbye.